Okay, I'm going to do something which I may regret, but I'm going to do it anyway. Somebody very close to me reached out to me and asked me to talk about this concept called Lilis, Lilith. Every year when it comes Pashas Bereshis, this subject shows up amongst the young people, amongst the curious people. That everybody knows that Adam Rishon married Chava, but there's Medrashim and there's Zoyars to the effect that the Adam Rishon, as they like to call it, had a second wife, and her name was Lilis, and that she was not so cooperative, she wasn't such a team player to Adam Rishon, and so on and so forth. And there's all kinds of interesting things that are written in Medrashim and in Zoyar about Lilis. The Zoyar doesn't describe Lilis as an actual woman. The Zoyar describes Lilis as a ruach, as a spirit, as the force of Tumah that causes people keri, that causes people to have a oinus, and associates her with a koyach hatumah. Some of the Medrashim give the impression that Lilis is an actual woman. So I'm going to tell you my thoughts on Lilis. And of course, I think that what I'm saying has some legitimacy and some truth. But what I'm about to say is only my understanding on the subject, or my opinion on the subject. My opinion is that there's no Lilis was Chava. Chava is Lilis, Lilis is Chava, it's the same person. The issue is as follows. When Adam and Chava were created, when human beings were created, as you know, they were created as one, they were created back to back as Siamese twins. And then the Rashi says, the Gemara says, the operation that Adam Rishon, that Hashem did to create Chava from Adam was not creating Chava from Adam, it was simply separating Chava from Adam. Because originally they were Du Partsufim Nivra, they were created as one body, back to back, and he separated them, so now they're two separate people who can face each other panim b'panim and have a more meaningful relationship. And as the Pasuk says, Eze Kenegdei, when two people get married, they're two, and they continue to be two. So if they live properly together, Eze, they make each other better and they support each other. And if they don't live together properly, then Keneged, they become combative, they become very destructive. Or as it's brought in Sfarim, there's Matzah Isha, Matzah Teva, Moitzani, Hesamavis. That if a person is married correctly, there's nothing better in the world, and if a person is married incorrectly, then it's the most painful thing in the world. And that's just how I understand Lilis. Adam Rishon and Chava were supposed to be married in a way that demonstrated a oneness between the two of them. After the Achei Temimim, there was a breakdown in the quality of the relationship. And because there was a breakdown in the quality of the relationship became shallow. Always. Adam and Chava were God's creations, and they were in His image. And they were expected to have a perfect union. Now, of course, we all understand how difficult that is, because we know what relationships mean. Any kind of relationship between two people can get complicated, especially as a relationship as whole, as complete, as comprehensive, the relationship between a husband and wife, a man and a woman. And the relationship is supposed to be two people coming together on the level of the mind, on the level of the heart, on the level of the senses. Every dimension of the person is supposed to join with the other person in a healthy and a comprehensive way, in a complete way. And when a couple gets together in all of those levels, so they literally become one. And they become one not because God fused them, put them together, because He separated the two of them, but they become one through the effort of joining with another person. It's the most difficult thing two human beings can do. It's also the most beautiful thing, the most complete thing, the deepest thing that a human being can, two human beings do. Or to say it in other words, I tell my students all the time, the best thing you'll ever do in your life and the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life is be married. Because in marriage you have to identify every single flaw in yourself and ultimately correct it for the sake of the union. And only when a person works on himself is he able to join with another person completely. And only when a person works on himself, on all the different levels of himself, is he able to join with another person on all the levels of themselves in a complete and a comprehensive way. And Adam and Chava were meant to have that kind of union. original sin. So first of all, I want to say that the Sfarim seem to say, the Midrashim seem to say that Lilis was married to Chava, to Adam Rishon before Chava. That's not the full picture. Adam was married to Chava before Achei Temimim. And when the Eibishter made the operation, so to speak, and separated Chava from Adam, they had a complete and a perfect union. And after the Chet, Adam continued to be married to Chava, but because of the sin and whatever other considerations there were, he did not fully engage in his relationship with Chava in the kind of way that would have made their relationship whole. And as a result, the relationship is seen as flawed, which means as if he's living with another woman, a woman which is not his own, even though it was his wife, but because he was not involved with her as completely as he was meant to be, in a spiritual way, it was as if he was living with another woman. And it says in Sfarim, it says in Midrashim, that the 130 years that Adam separated from Chava, he was Meisi Zerel of Atola, and it produced all kinds of strange offspring. I don't think the pshat in these Midrashim is bepashtat that Adam Rishon was Yitzir Kappa Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Meisi Zerel of Atola. I understand it to mean that Adam had a relationship with Chava, but because the relationship was not complete, it was on superficial levels. In one way or another, it's considered as though she is an alien woman. And when the Gemara speaks about a couple who lives together, and there is something between them that's not good, that has an ill effect on the offspring. The offspring don't reflect them completely, right? One of the ideas of procreation is like it says in the pasuk by Sheith, Vayelid bidmusei kitzalma. You produce a child that's exactly like yourself. But in order for the child that you produce to be exactly like yourself, you need to be perfect yourself, so to communicate that perfection to the child. And for the 130 years after the Achei Temimim, Adam Rishon, for whatever reasons, was not living with Chava that way. So my understanding is, my interpretation is that Lilis is Chava, and she's considered an alien woman because Adam was not involved with her the way Adam was meant to be involved with her. And after the 130 years, Adam, again, for however you explain the stories, engaged with Chava the way he engaged with Chava before the Achei Temimim, and therefore produced a child, produced a child exactly like himself, because if everything of the father unites with everything of the mother, the child that they produce is a complete reflection of all the possibilities that the father and the mother have. So to summarize again, I think Lilis is Chava, and certainly according to the Zohar that it's an inyan ruchni, that it's a spiritual, it's a spirit of some sort. It's the same idea. It's the idea of there being a chesaron, a deficiency in the wholeness of the union between the husband and the wife, between Adam and Chava. And of course that includes how that union involves a very real purity. A purity means to say that the purpose of the unity is that they should be one. And when there are these kinds of flaws, the children that are born have some kind of deficiencies. And that's how we understand Lilis. And that later Adam married Chava is the same Chava he had been married to before the Achei Temimim. But because he engaged in his relationship with his wife the way the Eibush expects that relationship to be, that first of all, every part of the Adam and every part of the Chava is perfect within themselves, and then those two join together in a comprehensive way, so the children that they produce are in the image of their parents, and ultimately in the image of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.